Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about some books. These books have one thing in common. They are all very deep and profound and give you something to think about. They basically give you food for thought. These recommendations will make you think, will perhaps spark discussions, will perhaps change your perspective, give you a perhaps fresh look on different topics. And let's start. And let's start with one of my favorite books this year. That's The Poppy War. So, The Poppy War is essentially a Chinese fantasy. And if I had to convince you to read it, I would say that if you like really heavy and dark stuff and you extremely brutal and gritty narrative style, then The Poppy War is for you. So, talking about its profound message, I'd say that the discussions of war, its aftermaths, are brilliantly handled. The arc of our main character, as she's dealing with racism and classism, and the consequences of an abusive family, an abusive relationship she had with her aunt, and her identity crisis as she discovers more about her past all really deliver a brilliant message about how much war actually affects people. Another brilliant discussion point is politics. The way politics is handled in this is really like praiseworthy. The way politics affects each and every small thing, about how politics actually lead to the colorism and racism in the book, is simply, I mean, it's really a bare and brutal. Everything that could go wrong goes wrong. And every person faces a lot of consequences. Like, everything is very realistic and it's really a punch to the gut kind of fantasy. And that is why it gave me a lot to think about how war is just not about numbers, but about the behind the scenes of war. This sounds weird, but it's exactly what it is. The feelings of people before war, after war, during the crisis, how much of a crisis it is, and how much it is more of a power play than anything else, and how the only that's our other common people. And it sounds generic, but you should give the book a try because it's really handled with such maturity and personally gave me a lot to think about. Personally was very profound and drew its point really well. So my next recommendations is going to be Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights is a classic. So even though it's typically known as a romance, it's like marketed as a romance, but honestly, I don't think it's about romance. I mean, there is romance at the end, which is actual healthy romance, but the romance between our two main characters, Heathcliff and Catherine, is extremely toxic, like extremely toxic, but they don't think it's toxic. It's like destructive, obsessive, intensive love, and how it really affects people, their character, and how it is one of the most toxic relationships you can be in, because nothing is worse than an obsessive, possessive relationship. It's not romantic at all. It's very tragic, honestly. But also, there's a lot of symbolism going on. The writing is very beautiful. The gothic element just, adds to the message the book is trying to give. I mean, there's a lot of things to take away from the book, and I don't want to give my takes because I think everyone's interpretations, everyone's takeaway from the book is going to be different. But if you want to ask me what I took away from the book, like, hate can really change a person just as much love can. I mean, it's like in the first half it's a really unhealthy obsessive relationship as it turns into a kind of revenge story, but ends with kind of optimistic ending, with the characters getting an ending that the previous main characters couldn't have. It's beautiful, really. The element of gothic fiction really like makes the whole package even more profound, I might say, and even more beautifully tragic is how I can describe the book. Please give it a go. So The Perks of Being a Wallflower is a coming of age story, and it's one of the best coming of age story I have ever read. Thing is, narrative style itself suggests the protagonist's slow initiation, slow transformation into the adolescence age, the changes he is dealing with, the issues he has to deal with, the how the circumstances around him change him, how his how he's battling a lot of things inside himself as he's going into the adolescence phase. It's very beautiful, but that is just one of the stories. It's a lot of stories all intermingled in one beautiful story of friendship, love, and a lot of hardships. I mean, like any problem you can think of, it's all there in the book, and all the issues that the book is talking about, it does it so with such grace. Like it handles it with maturity. I mean, that is common in all of the books. Whatever theme they're talking about, whatever they want us to think about, whatever perspective they're trying to give, it is very matured and very profound. I hit this. I'm using these two words again and again, but my vocabulary is very limited right now, so forgive me for that. But the book is just. It's not even the issues. It's about the friendships. It's about the love that It's about letting go. It's about It's about when to let go. It's about how to tackle different relationships. Everything is there in the book. I don't want to spoil anything, so I don't want to even give. I don't want to reveal anything, but the book is one of the most beautiful coming of ages stories ever. The reflections in the book, the reflections of the main character, his thoughts, his journey is just so good. So, yeah, that was my. So my next recommendation is actually going to be non-fiction, and it completely surprised and blew me away. This was a book that left me so surprised. So I don't usually read non-fiction, but this memoir was like going on BookTube a lot. So I picked it up, just for like diversifying my reading, diversifying the genres I read, and I loved it so much. It was really good. And because this is very raw, like the reflections, the unflinching account the author gives about her experiences are so good. Her observations, her gradual change, like it's very powerful in its messages. The author does not hesitate to paint a rather unlikable but sympathetic image of her in the beginning, about how she was, about how these assumptions that she had made, about what she believed, about how her whole world changed just because of education, about the true and transformative power of education. Like we nowadays take education for granted. I don't even hesitate to say we do. We take education for granted a lot. But if you read this book, I think you will value education a lot more. I don't want to sound preachy, but like this was so extraordinarily heartwarming. Like it tugs at your heart. It makes you think about so many things in this world. It shows you about how you can love someone but still let them go, because that was one part that I really loved. Her As she is becoming more aware about how she is changing, about how all her opinions are changing, about how she is conflicted between what she has believed and now what she is seeing, how they are changing directly affects her relationship with her family and how she's dealing with it. It's all raw, it's all beautiful, and it makes you think a lot. That is a common theme again, that these all deal with themes that can make you think, that can make you reflect. So my next recommendations is gonna be The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This one is a BookTube favorite, and it's a BookTube. It's for a reason, and that is because it is absolutely fantastic in every aspect. It's the strongest point of the book, I think, is the storytelling part. The way the story of Evelyn Hugo, the protagonist of the story, is being narrated, is presented to us, is just so good, and I think that is one of its strongest. But with that aside, what the books narrative on celebrity culture, on their lack of privacy they have, on what actually goes behind the scenes, is what was really hard hitting for me. Like, you can see that behind all that glamorous life, very it's a very competitive and ruthless industry, and people will do crazy things to say in the top. And our protagonist is very morally gray, and that just makes it all more interesting. And since she was a superstar in the like 1950s, the discrimination of that time, about how many hurdles she has had to face, about the things she had to go through as a woman trying to rise to the top at that time, was especially so satisfying to read about. I mean, it was also uncomfortable because it was, very ruthless in its exploration of the kind of condition during that time. And it talks a lot about what we are presented, like the media we are presented with is a completely different story than what actually happens. Like, whatever actually happens is just packaged into spicy headlines or untrue hot headlines, um, to sell it to the viewers, but it is not actually what happens. And how that media can shape the opinion of a person, like shape our opinion of a person, but how different they actually are, and how they actually rose to the top. It's beautiful, and I think you should read it for that reason. About how it, about if I had to sum it up in like two sentences, it'll be like the effect of media and what actually is true. I think that is how I would sum it up. The next book I would like to talk about is Scythe. So this one is a dystopia, and it's a very good dystopia in my opinion. So the dystopia is, actually looks, it disguises itself as a utopia, as in the society we are looking at in the book has seemingly achieved the ideal society. Nobody can die, nobody goes poor or hungry. Everyone, can have the basic things you need to live. So, in such a society, everything should be good, right? Like, it should be perfect, right? Everyone should be happy, right? Obviously, no, because it's a dystopia, and also because the way it discusses about this version we have of ideal society is actually less than ideal. It's not ideal at all. It discusses the moral consequences, the moral actions that come from seemingly achieving immortality, from even if you kill someone, they aren't really dead because they can be revived by the most advanced technologies. So you can kill someone without any consequences, or without feeling guilt or deep conscience about what you did. The line becomes blurred. The line between right and wrong becomes very blurred. And it also shows about how the society has appointed some people sites, basically, to kill people because nobody can die naturally anymore, and how that affects the society, and how this supposedly ideal societies how this supposedly ideal society is not at all ideal. I mean, I've mentioned it so many times, but that is what it is about. Seemingly, seemingly it all seems perfect, but it's all a facade. Like, there's not. Everyone seems happy. Everyone seems like everyone is trying to convince him that this is awesome, that this is perfect. But is it though? I mean, as you delve deeper into the book, they discuss a lot. There's a lot of discussions along with excellent world building, but we're here to talk about all that. Basically, this is a very good critique on perfect society, and there are some very interesting discussions about philosophy and mortality. So check it out. My next recommendation is going to be a classic, and that is The Picture of Dorian Gray. So this one is a pretty short classic. So if you're looking for something short and meaningful, you can pick up this classic. So first, just a little appreciation for the writing. It's beautiful. It's poetic. It's literally It's literally so. See, I don't have any adjectives to describe how awesome the prose is. So just trust me, please. So now let's go on to the part where it made me think. So the part was So the picture of Dorian Gray is the story of a man who's extremely beautiful, like very pretty, and he gets a portrait of himself done, and it's so perfect. I don't, and by some circumstance, uh, the portrait basically takes on all of the physical consequences of his sins, and he it ages instead of him. Like the portrait is aging instead of him. The portrait becomes ugly, the portrait becomes old, the portrait is showing signs of hardened youth, the consequences of taking terrible decisions. Not him, he still looks young and fresh and naive, and it focuses on how that makes him extremely corrupt. How, because of no consequences, no limitations, he just spirals into this he just spirals downwards into this reckless, corrupted person who just has no conscience whatsoever, because he doesn't allow himself to look at the portrait, which is showing all his deeds, which is showing the signs of his aging. And the guy takes complete advantages of him being pretty. It shows about how much it matters if you are pretty. It really shows about how much consequences matter, and how the downward spiral of Dorian Gray into complete corruption, into complete conscienceless monster is incredibly disturbing and incredibly interesting, and is a stark contrast to his appearance, and which is why he's able to trick so many people. He's able to maintain this appearance of being awesome, of being a fresh and naive young person. It shows you how much pretty privilege matters, and it is a very good warning tale about immortality and uh, you know having endless youth. So, because the ending really cements that fact, because while he is not facing any consequences or having no conscience, the portrait is still there, and it's always lurking in the back of his mind, making him uneasy, and that portrait is his downfall eventually. It's a very good story. It's a very complex and nuanced story about the ill consequences, about the ill consequences of things like these, about how we always hope, I wish I'd never die, but also I'd never get old, and we keep saying things that's so. Oscar Wilde really took that whole concept and made it into a book, and tells you don't ever wish for that. And it's awesome. It really makes you see about how bad it would be if this actually happened, how much it would corrupt your own soul, how much it would just lack in your mind, how you would just spiral into, you would just deteriorate into this monster. So my next recommendation is going to be another classic, and another short classic, and that is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This one completely blew my mind away, like completely. Aside from its extremely gripping narrative and engaging plotline, this book is such a good discussion on the facades of human nature. We always like to boil down things to good and evil, so the book basically personifies that. It's like, what if you had a really good side and a really bad side, and the book has a protagonist who is basically so Dr. Jekyll is the good side and Mr. Hyde is the bad side. They're both basically the same person. This is not a spoiler, by the way. They're basically both the same person. Just one is the personification of his evil side, and the other is the personification of his good side. And if you are just good and bad, can you really, exist in such black and white? I mean, we love discussing about morally gray characters, and because real humans are morally great too, but most of us like to see life in black and white. This is good, this is bad. So he is bad, I'm good. He's good, that's bad. So, but are things really like that? And that book is such a good narrative on that topic, because they basically, there's this person. So by societal standards, he should either be good or he should either be bad. But we all, but so there's a very good version of him and there's a bad version of him, and just the story progresses on that, about these two versions of himself clashing. They are presented as different people, but they're actually the same people. And this is again not a spoiler, by the way. It's just mentioned in the premise itself. I mean, the whole book won't make sense if you don't know that. So, uh, that is the book. That is what the book is about. And as you can see, that such a story would be extremely thrilling and engaging, but also will make you think about the black and white notion I just mentioned about how life is really not black and white at all. The people just say, "Oh, there's a thing is there's a bad side, there's a good side. It depends upon which side you let win, and how about it's all bullshit. It's crap. Should read the book. Uh, you should read that book. It's really good." My next recommendation is going to be another classic, another short classic. So that's three in a row. But because, I mean, if you want just a easy, meaningful read, pick up any three of these. So this one is Animal Farm by George Orwell. It's a novella, and it's an political allegory, and it's brilliant. It makes use of animals to convey its political message. It's like these animals throw out the owner of the farm they live in, and then declare themselves as a constitution about how all animals are equal. But as time progresses, it isn't like that. you know the social hierarchy develops. Some animals are treated better than other animals. Some animals are not treated that good. There's an imbalance, there's an inequality as time progresses, and it just widens and widens and widens. And the book is basically saying, is basically about how it happens, how much media and propaganda and brainwashing have to be used to make things that way. Because basically the animals were treated like that with the humans, and they revolted because they knew it was unfair. But they did not revolt against the animals that were now controlling the other animals. Why? And the book looks takes a look at that, the question why, about creating this illusion of freedom, but not not having any actual freedom, making you believe you do but you don't actually. Slowly things turning into a dictatorship. You are having the illusion of choice. You don't actually have a choice. And it's one, and he shows that how much that can make a difference. Even you know maintaining that illusion can work wonders for people who vie for control. It's a brilliant tactic. And then he shows how much propaganda and brainwashing helps in rooting a dictatorship and not even making the people think it's a dictatorship. And cementing it by violence and you know threats. Basically, it's a very good political allegory on a dictatorship, how it works and how it seizes control and stays in control through so many deceptive tactics, and taking advantage of everything they have, of things like media, making use of violence and making it seem justified or okay. It's brilliant and you should read it. I mean, at the end of the day, all books I'm just going to be like, it's brilliant, you should read this. So trust me, bro. Or trust me, really. I've read all of these. You may like it or you may not. I like it, so maybe you should try reading it. That was all my recommendations for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you want to see a more in-depth reviews of the books individually, my blog is linked down below. There are reviews of the books I have talked about in this video. You can check it out. And thank you for watching till now. I know this was a long video, but I just love books and I can talk about books for hours. So If you want to see me talk about books for hours, subscribe and hit that notification bell. And comment down below your go-to recs when you want to, when you want to recommend someone a meaningful and themed book about heavy topics. So that was the video. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Do like, share, and subscribe, and tell me your thoughts down below in the comments. Bye.